May the Lord give this council the wisdom, discernment and courage to serve the community. Grant also that we may act compassionately and with integrity in the best interest of this shire. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I would like to show respect and acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land and elders past, present and future on which this meeting takes place. This meeting has been audio recorded and those in attendance should refrain from making any offensive statements. There will be no other recordings of this meeting without prior authorisation of council. Councillors, just while you're standing, this is for the unfortunate loss of Steve Pryor. Unfortunately, Steve lost his battle with cancer just after Christmas. Steve started with the former Merriwell Shire Council in 2002, and at the time of the amalgamation in 2004. He had the position of Executive Manager in Merriwell. In 2006, he became Deputy Director of Corporate Services, then Acting Director of Corporate Services in 2008, before being appointed to the position of Director of Corporate Services in 2009. In 2017, Steve took the additional role of the Infrastructure Section of Council, which he did up to his retirement in 2018. Steve achieved a great deal for the Upper Hunter Shire during his time here. And also the sad passing of another long-term employee, Mick McBain. Mick passed away earlier this month. Mick worked with council for almost 50 years, from 1965 to 2014, when he then retired. Mick spent most of his time with council working on timber bridges, being the main man in bridge maintenance and construction for years. His skills were highly regarded by his peers. Our thoughts and prayers go to Steve and Mick's family at this sad time. Councillor, we may have a minute's silence for those in the families, please. Thank you, councillors. Okay, councillors, we'll move on to the agenda. Application for attending meeting by video link is nil. Apologies. Application for leave, nil. Public participation. Confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 29th of November 2021. Got a mover. Move Councillor Burns. Second, Councillor Campbell. Questions, comment, discussion. All in favour? Against? Carried. The extraordinary council meeting held on the 10th of January 2021. 2022, sorry. Got a mover. Move Councillor Watts. Second, Councillor Campbell. Any questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Disclosure of interest.
Mr Mayor, I have three before me. The first is from Councillor Abbott in regard to the notice of motion 1.1 on visiting medical officers. She is declaring a pecuniary significant interest that she is married to a doctor who is a VMO and she will have no involvement in the meeting. The second is from Councillor Burns on item H1.2, the policies for review and in particular footpath trading policy. He is declaring a pecuniary non-significant interest as his wife is a trader on Kelly Street and he is on the Scone Chamber of Commerce and Industry Executive. He has chosen to have no involvement. The final one is from Councillor Watts on item G 1.1, the donations. She is declaring a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest as she is the president of the Scone Horse Festival. She will stay in the room, be part of the discussion and take no action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. GM. We'll move to A01.1, recognition of length of service. I'll just, first of all, the council make a presentation to Christine Robinson in recognition of her length of service to council, and Dave Burriston in recognition of his retirement from council. Can I have a mover, please? Move, Councillor Burns. Second, Councillor Campbell. All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay. The purpose of this report is to recognise the length of services of Christine Robinson, who has resigned from council, and the retirement of David Burriston. After 12 years with Australian Post and 30 years with Telstra, David joined council in 2011 for some casual work, as at that stage he had decided to semi-retire. Starting out with the Parks and Gardens in Aberdeen and driving trucks out of the depot, David took up permanent operator's role with the Waste Department not long after. He was promoted to Waste Supervisor in 2016, an achievement he remains very proud of. David said it is the variety of work and the quality of people that he has worked with and has starved of retirement until now. He has very fond memories of this time with council. Retirement to David simply means paying attention to the farm. We thank David for his contribution to council and the community and wish him all the very best in your retirement. Christine commenced employment with the former Scone Shire Council in March 1992 in a 3-month temporary placement as an assistant to the Deputy Shire Clerk. Christine then joined the Environmental Services Division as a casual administration assistant and was appointed to a permanent position in 1993. In 2008, Christine commenced in the role of Assistant Health and Building Surveyor and was promoted to Health and Building Surveyor in 2009. In 2014, she was successfully applied for the role of Health, Building and Compliance Coordinator and was appointed to the position of Manager, Planning, Building and Regulatory Services in 2019. Some of Christine's notable achievements during her time at council have included establishing the Young Endeavour program in 1999 with the Community Services team, completing a Woman in Local Government Professional Development program in 2010, and the Local Government Rural Management Challenge in 2014, and receiving a nomination for a Woman in Local Government Ministers Award in 2020. Christine has been instrumental in the development and implementation of a number of council projects and initiatives, including the Upper Hunter Shire Community Participation Plan, the e-planning services, the New South Wales Planning Portal, and the Planning Acceleration Program, which resulted in significant improvements to council's DA assessment timeframes and secured council in a $2 million grant under the Public Spaces Legacy Program. Christine is highly regarded by her colleagues and many sectors of the community, including the local building industry. After 30 years in local government, Christine has decided it's time to move on and take up an opportunity to work in the private sector. We wish Christine all the very best in her future endeavours and thank her for a positive contribution she has made to council and the Upper Hunter community. Well done to you both and congratulations. Come up forward, please. It can't be a bad place to work all those years. Christine, well done. Thank you very, very much in your future. Do you wish to speak? No. Sure. Mr. Burriston. Same, Dave. Congratulations, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on board, and thank you for your efforts. And you certainly done a massive contribution to the Upper Hunter Shire. So, well done. You wish to say. Put your hands together. You don't have to leave us. Thank you. Okay, councillors, over to page 1 of the agenda, C01.1. Council and Standing Committee meetings scheduled in section 355 Advisory Committee structure. Move, Councillor Watts with an amendment. You've got the floor.
Okay. We'll leave 1, 2, and we will change 3B to read. Endorse the following standing committee meeting schedules, and B will read the Environment and Community Services Committee. So we'll be taking out that Environment Services Development. And we'll add 6, which is adopt the charters of the 3 standing committees with charter for D&E now be named Environment and Community Services. And that charter has some changes. So on the second page where it says staff attending, we will add manager of planning, building and regulatory services and or senior environmental planner. Take out at the end of that sentence and or health, building and compliance coordinator. In objectives, we will take out office and or senior health and building surveyor and put or director of environmental and community services. And in responsibilities in the dot points, the first dot point, we will remove and buildings applications.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. We've got a seconder for that, seconded by Councillor Burns. Now, before we move on, councillors, we'll go back now to 3A and the Corporate Services Committee to pick the committee for councillors. So, this who wishes to be on that committee, that raising hands. So raising hands again. Oh, we have got a problem. Okay, so we've got Councillor Williamson, Councillor Watts, Councillor Flaherty, Councillor Burns and Councillor Abbott. You got them all down there? Councillor Burns, Councillor Flaherty, Councillor Watts and Councillor Williamson. And we need 4. So how are we going to do this? Just go around and do an individual vote, show of hands.
Mr Mayor, I think given that there's 9 councillors and there's 5 nominees, you could do an open show of votes and the one with the least number of votes is eliminated. If there's more than one with the same number of minimum votes, you could then effectively just have a vote for the last 2 or 3. That's probably the easiest mechanism, the fairest, if councillors are happy with that process.
Can I just note this is the only committee I'll be attending?
Okay, so if all 5 councillors are firm on wishing to hold the position, we'll have to do a vote.
Yep.
So we'll just go to one councillor and just go show of hands.
Yeah, show of hands for, say, Councillor Abbott.
So Councillor Abbott, show of hands, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, is that you? 6?
Yeah, I've had it, yet. So we get to vote twice, can't we?
No. Each councillor gets 1 vote. Sorry, there are 4 persons. You can do it one of 2 ways. You can have 4 votes each, or, which is going to get very hard to control, or you have 1 vote each, and then we eliminate the lowest one and work through it again. So they're the 2 options I can see before me.
Mr Mayor, I wonder if we couldn't just vote now for the next name and all put our hands up accordingly, or you think we should only have 1 vote for this committee for the Corporate Services Committee?
I just thought it was a simpler process, councillor, if we had one vote each. You're not going to get an even distribution of 9 votes over 5 candidates, so there will be somebody or 2 people with a minimum. We can then just vote on who participates from that. So you'll take the top ones through and vote a second time on the bottom ones.
So if that's the case, most of us voted this time, didn't we?
Well, that's right, but I think most of you thought that you had multiple votes, so I think you need to undertake that again, councillors.
Can we go around and do that like we just did and have a look, just write the totals down?
We can do it, write the totals. I'm just
happy with that?
I'll trust you to limit your voting numbers to 4 because I'll do my best to try and capture it.
Okay, hands up for councillor Burns. 5.
That's 5.
And
Okay.
the first one.
I got 6 for councillor Abbott, 5 for councillor Burns.
Right, councillor Flaherty.
Yeah, just where we get we only just vote once. We can vote a second time. That's fine.
For each councillor, then have a look. Everyone happy with that?
Mr.
Each
Chairperson,
councillor
so we
gets
get 4 votes.
That's right.
So now back to councillor Flaherty. 6.
3, 4, 5, 6.
Right, now we'll go to councillor Watts.
You're not voting for yourself?
6, 7, 9.
It's going to be interesting. Councillor Williamson.
3, 4, 5. Oh, 1, 2. I've got 8 on that one.
How's the maths?
Yeah, so I don't believe everyone's voted 4 times. Councillor Campbell, I don't think voted 4 times, but I wasn't keeping track of everyone. But I've got 9 votes for councillor Watts, 8 votes for councillor Williamson, 6 each for councillor Flaherty and Abbott, and councillor Burns with 5.
So at that rate, we've got councillor Williamson.
You
Numbers.
would have councillor Williamson, Watts, Flaherty and Abbott as the 4 councillors with the highest.
Yep. So that's it.
Councillors should now undertake a vote for chair as well.
Yeah. No. So, okay, we've got councillor Watts, councillor Williamson, councillor Flaherty and councillor Abbott is the panel. And now who's going to be the chair?
Is there a nominee from any of the councillors?
I nominate councillor Watts as the chair.
Councillor Watts nominated by councillor Abbott. Councillor, just turn your mic on, please, councillor.
I second councillor Watts.
Councillor Watts, so councillor.
I nominate councillor Williamson.
Okay, we've got 2 nominations. We've got councillor McPhee's nominated councillor Williamson. Got a seconder. Councillor Campbell. Okay, can we have a show of hands for councillor Watts? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Show of hands for councillor Williamson. 5. Councillor Williamson, you're the chair for that committee. Okay. That's the development environmental is done.
That's corporate.
Corporate, sorry. Corporate. Yep.
Environment.
Councillor, you were aware that was corporate services? Yep. No, you're aware that we just need corporate services. That's what I'm. So we did 3A.
Mr. Mayor, can I just There's a lot of confusion. Let's figure out what we're doing.
Well, we were doing 3A, corporate services. Was everyone aware of what we were?
No, I wasn't. What did you think it was? I wasn't.
Okay, then Councillor Burns, are you still interested in corporate services? So is that so? The Councillor Watts has just resigned from corporate services? And
Mr Mayor, do we then need to reassess the chair?
Yes, because we have a new committee structure. Unless,
I don't have to be on that. Let's cancel that. Okay. We should do the election of the mayor, the chair again, I suppose. So, Councillor Williamson, everyone happy with Councillor Williamson, the chair? Councillor Williamson, you are the chair of the corporate services. Okay. We'll move over to 3B. B, Development and Environmental Services. Show of hands, who wishes to be on the committee? Well, this is easier. So we've got Councillor Watts, Councillor McPhee, Councillor Flaherty, Councillor Clout and Councillor Campbell. These are making it difficult. Okay then.
I've got Campbell. Sorry, councillors, I'm just keeping record. I've got Campbell, Clout, Flaherty, McPhee. Who was the fifth?
Watts.
Lee.
That's five councillors.
I've got 5.
No doubt about you. Okay. So the development, we've got Councillor Campbell, Councillor Flaherty, Councillor McPhee and Councillor Watts. Now, a chair for that committee. Councillor Watts, nominated by Councillor Campbell, seconded by Councillor Williamson, got him first. Councillor Watts, you are the chair. Okay, Infrastructure Services Committee, hands up. 5.
Sorry, I've got 3.
Councillor Abbott, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Clout, Councillor McPhee. Councillor myself, count 5.
So I don't know if it makes any difference if you want to know which councillors aren't on a committee at the moment.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's an ideal of all councillors on the committee. I'm not on a committee. Who else is not on the committee at this stage? Councillor Clout.
Not on a committee. I think that's it. Everyone else has a. Yeah. So Councillor Collison and Clout aren't yet nominated for any committees. If that makes a difference.
Well, I suppose we should vote. 4. So we better do the same again, councillors, and make it even. So we'll start with Councillor Abbott. 4. Councillor Campbell. 5. Councillor Clout. No, not necessarily.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, you have to be on a standing committee. You have no choice. You have to be on at least one.
I'm not sure about that, but anyway, we'll keep going around. Who was the other one?
Was that 8 or 9? Did anyone not vote?
Back for Councillor Clout again. Show of hands, please.
I've got 8. Yep. Oh, no, it is 9. No, it is 8. 8, thank you.
And then we had Councillor
McPhee.
2,
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then yourself.
and myself. If I have to be on it, I suppose.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, so 8. So councillors, I have 8 for councillor Collison, 8 for councillor Clout and 8 for councillor McPhee. And then it drops down to 5 for councillor Campbell. So councillor Abbott with 4 would miss out in that race. So
just repeat that again.
I've got 8 for councillor Collison, 8 for councillor Clout and 8 for councillor McPhee. And then the next one would be 5 votes for councillor Campbell. Councillor Abbott would miss out with 4 votes. So the 4 would be Collison, Campbell, Clout and McPhee.
Okay, well, that's all we can do. Everyone happy?
Need to vote.
Could I just ask for clarification? Can't you be on the committee anyway, Mr. Mayor? Why do we have to vote for you for these committees, given that you can be on all 3?
But I don't believe I can be a voting delegate, Mr.
Yes, you can. You're the mayor.
Unless I chair the meeting.
Yeah, let me just- The mayor shall be a member of the committee and may elect to chair any meeting of the committee.
Anyway, if that's what the council decided. So now we're going to select a mayor, a chair out of those councillors. I'll nominate councillor Campbell. Second by councillor McPhee. Any other nominations? Councillor Campbell, you're elected as the chair. Okay. But just remember, council, any councillor can come to those meetings, just can't have a vote. So that's, yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Let's put the vote.
Now we're going to go back to the recommendation, which was moved by councillor Watts with a small amendment. And it was seconded by councillor Campbell. Is that right?
I've got James Burns.
James Burns. Okay. That's on the whole now, the amendment with all the executive positions filled. All in favour? Against? Carried. Now we'll get a roll up.
Mr. Mayor, a question that I have down here on the infrastructure services, I may have missed it. Is it the committee that will decide whether it has to be at 12:30 or could be changed to another date? Or does that have to be done now, or is it too late?
I think the common sense thing would be the committee, Mr. GM, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah. Once the committee meets for the first time, they can decide on their meeting time that's preferable to them.
Thank you.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, councillors, over to page 14 of your agenda. C01.2, Marundi Australia Day Working Committee.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, can we just go back? The charter actually says the time, and you've just voted on the charters. The
Yes.
charter includes the time.
It
Are you going
does.
to change the charter within the committee?
So the charter can be changed within the committee. I think it might have to come back for ratification within the council, but I'm sure that the committee can work out a time that suits them and request to change the charter.
Okay, we've got a mover on the Marundi Australia Day Committee. Move councillor Burns, second. Councillor Campbell. Questions, comment, discussion. Councillor, I know you only, no, all in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 17, C01.3, Arts Upper Hunter. Got a mover.
Mr. Mayor, that council dot point 1 stays the same, but number 2, that council delegate authority to the general manager to select a staff member to represent Upper Hunter Shire Council on the Arts Upper Hunter Board.
Second.
Any more questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 25. D01.1, development application number 136/2021, dual occupancy and subdivision of one lot into 2 lots. Move councillor Campbell, Seconder,
Second.
councillor Watts. Questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Yeah, show of hands, sorry for that. Yes, all in favour? Carried. Over to page 62, D01.2, development application number 109/2021, community garden. Got a mover? Move, councillor Abbott. Second, councillor Williamson. Questions, comment, discussion? Councillor Abbott, I thought you'd be talking. I think you should.
It's about time that we have one. It's wonderful. I thank the staff. Thank you, Mr. Pringle, and for everybody who has put into this. And we have a very excited community with respect to this. I know that the Tidy Towns group, or whatever their name is, with Linda Poser and her group, are very excited about this. And it's wonderful that we can work in with the Historical Society. And yeah, it's just wonderful, basically. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Abbott. Any more questions, comment, discussion? Councillor Campbell, you just turn your mic off, please. All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 82. Something's happened here. Okay, D01.3, environmental planning and assessment statement and expectations order 2021. Move, councillor Burns. Second. Councillor Williamson or Watts. Councillor Watts. Questions, comment, discussion? Councillor Abbott.
Yes, I'm just a little bit concerned that with the letter from the Minister, that this is really sort of waving in more development or just development willy-nilly. And I just hope that we're not going to be overdeveloping, and that red tape is still important, and we have to be thinking about our emissions reduction and making sure that whatever development we have is very responsible. And I am a little concerned that the Minister has written a letter. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, councillor Abbott. No more questions, comment? All in favour? Against? Councillor Abbott, against? Councillor Cloud. Oh, yeah, right. Yep. Okay, carried. Over to page 92, E01.1, proposed Murrundi transfer station. Remember, this is just to go out to expedition. Move, councillor Burns. Second, councillor Watts. Questions, comment, discussion? Councillor Abbott.
Yes, I'm also concerned about this, given that this is community land, and that by doing this, we'll then have to make it operational, and that the old showground is very important to the Murrundi community. And I wonder why we can't develop it on the existing landfill site. I understand that there are issues, but I wonder why we can't just wait and fix up the landfill site and then put the waste transfer station there, or perhaps the alternate one that was suggested in the papers on Halls Road. But I do object to community land being turned over to operational land, and there's significance here. There's historical significance with it being Murrundi's old showground.
Thank you, councillor Abbott. I suppose the important part is that this will be out to the community, so yeah, we'll wait for that feedback. Any more questions, comment, discussion? Not all in favour? Against? Councillor Williamson, councillor Flaherty, and councillor Abbott against? You want to show hands for the rest? It doesn't matter. That's right. Okay, carried. Over to page 99, G01.1, request for donations. Do you want to do this in one long group? or each one individually? Individually?
No, I'm happy for we move together. I thought the briefing discussed it, clarified the matter.
Okay, I got councillor Campbell to move 1 to 8. I've got a seconder. Councillor Williamson. Lee, no, you were staying in, weren't you? Yep. Okay. So any questions, comment, discussion? Councillor Abbott.
Yes, I object to number 4 that I think we should be providing a donation to the Castless Rodeo Committee. I understand that there's background there, that they've had donations from us, but I think Castless should have more, definitely should have this money. We should be waiving the fees. And they're a small community. Things are tough. They don't have that many people who can actually provide the fees or the subs or whatever it is. And they cover a lot of groups with this too. So I object to our recommendation in number 4 that we don't provide a donation to the Castless Rodeo Committee. I think we should. Thank you.
To you, Mr Mayor. I suppose what I need to say here is about 3, the Scone Horse Festival. They weren't actually asking for a donation. What the festival is doing, it's attracting equine disciplines to this area. And what's happened is due to the large increase in fees, and we've got one discipline that's gone from $0 to be able to do a demonstration to $2,000. They're not coming to the festival this year in 2022. They're not a ticketed event. They don't at all have any sponsorship. And I note that in your reply that you've said that you will look at waiving. What I'd like to see is a policy around something similar to the donation policy for community services, where if someone is using White Park and they're in that example, they've got a piece of paper that they can go to rather than have to apply to council every time that there's an event on. It would be a shame that so many equine disciplines can't come to an event that attracts so many thousands of people. And in the spirit of what that ground is, White Park was donated for community from what's their names? Blank, from the Whites, thank you. So if we could at least look at that so that there's a piece of paper to hand out to say, if you fall into this category, you won't be charged to do a demonstration on White Park during a festival.
Okay, so I'll just take that as a comment for future references. Okay, Councillor Campbell, you moved it, you could comment?
Yeah, look, my understanding, is the fact that we're not, they're asked for $320. The council gave $200 in November, so that left $120 to pay. I felt that was reasonable, to keeping with our donations policy. Yes, I very much think that we need a more comprehensive policy, and I agree with Councillor Watts. For any of these community events like this, we should be able to not be charging for that, because the small communities just cannot afford the large contribution. So I think that, but I just believe that leaving $120 to pay, I think, is reasonable. We already have given them the donation, which was I think unanimously agreed to.
So that was moved by Councillor Campbell, second by Councillor
Mr Mayor,
Williamson, wasn't it?
can I just ask a question though? How are we going to vote on this? Because I agree with some of them, but I don't agree with all of them.
Well, we're doing it with the majority rules, unfortunately. So, I mean, you could have moved to done them separately, I suppose. But anyway, we're going to move on to, and all in favour of 1 to 8? Against? Councillor Flaherty and Councillor Abbott. Motion's carried. Over to G01.2, Mount Pleasant Optimisation Project, Draft Voluntary Planning Agreement. Move Councillor Burns, second Councillor Campbell. Any questions, comment, discussion? Councillor Abbott.
Yes, I object to this. I understand that council is not going into this approving the mine, or rather the extension that they want to keep on digging up coal until 2048. But at the end of the day, we need to hold the line, because if we can't object on one hand, but then hold up our hand and say, look, if you do come, we'd like the $250,000 a year or whatever it was. I think we have a position statement, albeit out of date, that we're opposed to mines in our shire. And so we should stand firm, and we should be really campaigning and advocating that we don't have this mine, and not saying, however, if you do come, can we please enter into a voluntary planning agreement? So we know we have less than 10 years, we have less than 8 years to reduce our emissions by 70% if we have any chance of being net zero by 2050, which is essentially climate change denial. If we facilitate this by entering into a voluntary planning agreement, we are just ignoring the enormity of climate change, which is here on our horizon, already impacting us. I think we need to stand firm and not enter into a voluntary planning agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Put that as a comment. Councillor McPhee.
The way I see this is actually not, it's actually recognising that there is an environmental impact, because it is actually saying, although that the mine is in the Muswellbrook Shire, there are impacts in our shire. And so what we are actually doing is recognising the impact and actually allowing them to compensate us for that. What happens with Muswellbrook Shire, we don't have a lot of say in, but what we can recognise through this is that there is an impact.
Councillor McPhee. Councillor Burns.
In the agenda item that we just discussed beforehand, Mr. Mayor, we were talking about $120 and how we could give it to them. This is $250,000 a year, 7 million in today's money over the next however long. So that's going to get bigger, and it's going to go to the people of Aberdeen. So we're not going to have to scrap over $120 for Aberdeen. We can have those events there. It's not our place to say no to Mount Pleasant. Yes, we're going to say no in our agreements, in our, what's the thing you put, submission. But if we don't take this money, we're being financially irresponsible. So we have to apply for this. We have to make sure that everyone's aware of it.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Councillor Flaherty.
My concern is that it's 250k. I mean, that wouldn't even do 1 kilometre of road a year. I just think that it's actually a really small amount for a mine and for the impact that it's having. I think that perhaps we could negotiate a bit better.
Okay, well, we had a mover by Councillor Burns and a seconder by Councillor Campbell. So we'll put the motion up. All in favour? Against? You got the against there. Motion is carried. Over to page 136, G01.3, 2022 Local Government New South Wales Special Conference. You got any councillors showing expression of interest for that? Remembering it's the night of the day of the council meeting. Councillor Burns and Councillor Clout and Councillor Flaherty. Okay. Mr. GM, how many do you wish to send?
Mr. Mayor, we do have a conference budget, so if 3 councillors wish to attend, they could. However, you will still need to determine of the 3 which are the 2 voting delegates.
Okay, so all councillors are still keen to go. I think that's great. That will still leave us a quorum easily for our council meeting, so that's no issues. I think the 28th of February is a Monday, isn't it?
Yeah, but the voting doesn't start Tuesday morning.
Oh, so you're not going to the conference on the Monday? Well, Councillor Flaherty and Councillor Clout, you're both going to go down on the Monday for both, for the whole conference? Okay, who's going to be our voting delegates? Up to you, councillors.
Why don't we ask the councillors?
I'm sorry.
Why don't you ask the three councillors first?
Well, we could do that, so you don't mind not voting? Okay, well, let's solve that. Councillor Burns and Councillor Foley will be the voting delegates to attend the conference. And someone will talk to you about accommodation, etc. Any more questions, comment, discussion?
Could I request that there's some cascading of anything that, any information that they receive, so it's something that we all benefit?
Yep, that'll definitely, yep. All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to 142, H01.1, policies for review, corporate services. Got a mover. Got a mover.
I'll move.
Councillor Watts, second. Councillor Burns. Any questions, comment, discussion? Councillor Abbott.
Thank you. Just mentioning climate change and climate action, I think every single policy that we review and then accept or vote on, should it be including climate change, somewhat similar to the risk framework policy. But definitely climate change needs to be included in the corporate services policy.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. No more questions, comment. Councillor Watts, you still get your mic on. Thank you. No more questions, comment, discussion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 156, H01.2, policies review, environmental and community services. Councillor Burns leaving the room. Okay, councillor, we've got a mover. Move Councillor Campbell, second. Councillor Watts. Any questions, comment, discussion? Councillor McPhee.
I have a question regarding the monitoring of this. There are some specific requirements, for example, how many animals each person has. Whose responsibility will be to monitor this, and what happens if it is not followed? So it's just, to me, this just seems to be an added burden on the finances of the council. How are we going to rectify that?
Mr Pringle.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, it's monitored on a complaints basis only. So if we receive a complaint, then we investigate and take appropriate action if we have to.
Any more questions, comment? Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, this is far from perfect, this policy, but look, we've got to have something in place. Out at Merriwar, we seem to have the problem of barking dogs, and dogs that sometimes tend to be on the street when they shouldn't have been. But if we don't have any policy, we don't have any control or any advice to be given. I agree that it is not perfect and it is hard to implement, but I just think that we need something to have in place so that we can refer back that at any time. So I support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. No more questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Councillor Burns, back in, please. Councillor Burns, that was moved in the affirmative. Over to page 176, H01.3, revised code of meeting practice.
I'd like to move an amendment. Sorry for butting in, but I would. I'd like to move that we defer the revised code of meeting practice until February's ordinary council meeting to give us a bit more time to go through it, so we know exactly what we're sending out to the community, primarily because the document that we were provided with was incomplete. Thank you.
I've got a seconder for that amendment, Councillor Watts. Any more questions, comment, discussion around it? Councillor McPhee.
I believe all documents were available. Should one have looked for them?
I didn't quite hear that clearly.
I believe the documents were available if one had looked for them.
Yep. Okay. just take that as a comment. So we'll put the, all in favour? Against? Councillor McPhee against. Over to page 251, 101.1, removal of level 1 water restrictions across the Upper Shire Council. Got a mover.
I'll move it with the change, Mr Mayor.
Moved, councillor Burns.
That council remain on level 1 restrictions until the DMERP is created and council is informed of it on its impact.
Mr GM, can I just get you to clarify a couple of things on that, please?
That'll have a couple of ramifications. One will be that if Singleton and Muswellbrook do adopt to move off level 1, then there'll be mixed messaging in our community. So we generally communicate water restrictions through print and radio media. It becomes more difficult when you've got sort of regionalised print and radio media to give different messages for different localities. So that would be one difficulty. The second is a financial issue. The water and sewer budget is self-funded, so it's not supported by general rates. It is only funded through water and sewer rate charges. By restricting the water consumption, you're also restricting the income into that fund. Now, that fund is used to replace the current water assets and maintain the water assets in their I guess the condition that they need to be maintained in. It's probably one of our biggest asset classes and it probably poses some risk to maintaining them. My view is that there is a strong argument to follow the demand management practices that have been developed and already adopted by this council and to vary them on a whim, possibly without any sort of engineering background, is possibly removing an opportunity for council to replace those assets as and when needed.
Okay, well, councillor Burns has put the amended up. And, it's going to be now, councillors, now this will be the motion. If I put this up, which will be the amended motion, Mr GM.
There's only one motion on the table at the moment, Mr Mayor, which is the changed recommendation from staff. If a councillor wished to debate the recommendation, it would need to be put forward as an amendment.
I'll just, so where the second driest, I've made this argument before in this room. Singleton and Muswellbrook, very good neighbours of ours, I don't care. They go without us all the time. They changed their water policy and we got left behind. So I'm not so much worried about what they want to do. Water infrastructure, yes, that's important. We've just got the Murrundi pipeline. We understand how important that is, but water is treated like an afterthought. We're still in drought. Glenbourne didn't even get to 100%. And we're already saying, oh, we're out of drought. We're not. So I really have a problem with this. And yes, infrastructure is important, but I just don't think it's that important that we can run away from. It's level 1 to water-wise. Water-wise, you're allowed to still... There's no implications for someone wasting water.
Okay, thank you, councillor Burns. Now remember, if I put that up now, that will be the motion. There's no coming back to the recommendation unless someone wants to foreshadow it. There's no coming back to the recommendation in front of us. Okay.
I've seconded it.
But councillor Campbell, you only got one comment. Are you going to foreshadow to come back?
No, I'm not. I just wanted to actually ask a question. Similar to what councillor Burns did, if I may, if I'm out of order, I hope I'm not. 83.7% of all the rain that we've had is not very much. It's only went up from 78 to 79. There's something wrong. And with all that amount of rain that's come, I mean, there's been buckets of loads of it out around the Merriwa area, Gasless area, but somehow it's not being regenerated and going into that dam. And that's what concerns me greatly about abolishing water restrictions. I don't believe that they are water restrictions. They're trying to educate people that use water sparingly. Out at Merriwall, it's underground water, bore water, and we've been blessed with the fact that the supply is still there. But I think that the need is still there, that we need to conserve water. We have to do it on our farm, but that's a separate subject. So I agree with Councillor Byrne. We've got to be very careful about this because it hasn't built up our main supply of water.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Now I'm going to
Sorry, I'm just not clear. So Councillor Burns has moved the amendment.
Yep.
I've seconded it. Councillor Campbell's now spoken.
Yep.
Obviously, Councillor McPhee would like to speak. I'd like to speak too, being the
Yep.
seconder. So I totally agree with Councillor Burns that we need to basically do exactly as he's laid out in his amendment. And the same with Councillor Campbell, we're not out of drought yet. Water is a finite resource and we've got troubled times on the horizon. So I completely agree with this amendment.
Okay, Councillor McPhee,
I'd just like to clarify this because I'm a bit
can you
confused
just
now.
stand up, please?
Yeah. So I'm just a bit confused. So if we vote for this, it means that we stay on level 1. If we don't vote for this, do we go back to the original motion or not?
You can't go back. I'm going to foreshadow the motion. If that's lost, if the amended motion is lost, I'm foreshadowing to go back to the original. But if it's won, that will become the motion. Correct, Mr. GM?
That's correct. If the motion that's on the floor at the moment is lost, there's nothing to come back to at this stage unless there's an amendment, foreshadowed motion.
Okay, so I'm going to foreshadow it. Now I'm going to put the amended motion up that Councillor Burns and Councillor Abbott did. Those in favour of the amended motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Against? The amendment's won. That is now the motion. Complicated for you, Councillor Clout. Okay. You're leaving. Yes. Yes. Okay, councillors, over to page 258. NM 01.1, notice of motion, visiting medical officer coverage at Scott Memorial Hospital. Was moved by Councillor Flaherty. Councillor Flaherty, you wish to move it and speak to it?
Sure.
Sorry, have I got a seconder? Seconder, Councillor Burns. Go ahead.
So I put this motion forward after constituents expressed their concerns over the Christmas New Year period. And whilst it's not the remit of council to employ VMOs, I think it's really important for us to advocate for the community, especially for something as important as health. Since then, there's obviously been people from, I think we've had some emails from Merriwall and Murrundi also expressing concerns. Perhaps by the next meeting, we can look at a similar motion to have them represented as well, although they have slightly different needs than the Scone situation and might need a little more looking into in terms of what might solve their VMO issues. Thank you.
Could I move an amendment? Can I offer an amendment?
Yeah, you got a seconder, yeah.
Yep. I think that's a fantastic initiative you've got there, Councillor Flaherty. Would it be possible to amend this to the coverage of all services in the Upper Hunter Shire, and that way we actually get all of them at the same time? And so we're looking at the medical officer coverage at the Scone Memorial, at all hospitals in the Upper Hunter Shire.
You happy with that, Councillor Flaherty?
Yeah, I think so. And whilst they're all very different situations, I think if we could approach Mr. Lazelle to assess all of them would be great.
Definitely. Councillor Burns, you were the second. Are you happy with that small amendment? I think it's a great idea. Our family was put in the situation over Christmas and it's just no fault of anyone. We just need to get on top of it. So, okay, all in favour? Against? Carried. Councillor Abbott, that was in affirmative with a small amendment that all the hospitals throughout the Upper Hunter Shire get added to the list. And that was carried. Okay, page 259, NM 01.2, notice of motion, asylum seekers. Motion was moved by Councillor Abbott. Councillor Abbott, you wish to speak to it? Oh, no, sorry, seconder first. Seconded by Councillor Clout. Councillor Abbott.
Yes, thank you. So as I set out in the motion, in light of the Novak Djokovic visa matter, I have moved that we write to the Deputy Prime Minister, the Honourable Barnaby Joyce, asking that the Commonwealth Government discontinue locking people up indefinitely and instead place people seeking asylum in Australia in community housing. We know because of the recent media that there are men in the same hotel that Djokovic was in, the hotel, I cannot remember the name, the Carlton, I think it is, and they've came as children to Australia, they've been in detention ever since, and now they're holed up in a hotel and they can't get out at all. We did write to the Deputy Prime Minister with respect to the Biloela family. That was a unanimous decision by this council. I'm now asking that again we write to the Honourable Barnaby Joyce because we know that he is compassionate in these areas, and I think it's something, whilst I know it's not regular council business, this is a human rights issue, and that whilst their visas are being considered or whilst their statuses are being considered, they should be in the community, that we just cannot keep locking people up in hotels. And so I urge councillors to follow along with me, and that we ask Barnaby Joyce we write to Barnaby Joyce to see what representations he can make to make sure this situation doesn't continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Clout, you're the second. Do you wish to speak for the motion? No. Okay. Anyone like to speak against? Councillor Clout, you got your light on to speak, or you just? Okay. Councillor McPhee.
Although I'm very concerned about anything that contravenes our human rights, I'm just a little bit concerned that this matter doesn't really fall under our remit as a local council. And I just go to our local principles, our Local Government Act. It says council shall carry out functions in a way that provides the best possible value for residents and ratepayers. And although I feel for the cause, I just don't believe that this may be a useful way of using our very tight funds as it is.
Thank you. Any other questions, comment? Councillor Campbell.
If I may, I would like to comment on the fact that we already have, and I think some councillors have said so much about the community housing. We don't have enough community housing. Why are we bringing more people in? There's a reason that they are there. And while I agree the fact that it's not very good, there's a reason behind it. I think that this is something that we should not be taking a side on. I think that it's a very dangerous thing that we do. That's all. So I really couldn't support the motion.
Okay, no more questions, comments. I'll put the motion up.
It was my motion. So
Are
I
you
can
closing
finish.
if you wish to?
Yes, I do wish to, because this is a human rights issue, and the standard you walk past, you accept. And we just cannot continue to lock people up indefinitely. These men have been in this hotel for some time. They've been in detention before. Some of them came to Australia when they were children, and they've been here nearly 9 years, just locked up. This isn't about coming into this community necessarily or whatever, but it is a question of actually facing human rights. There was a time when I first came to Australia that it was bipartisan on allowing refugees and asylum seekers to come here. And Malcolm Fraser was an absolute champion, a real statesman. And it was bipartisan that we didn't have these refugees locked up in these hideous detention centres, or right now we're doing the hotel. All this is writing a letter to Barnaby Joyce. We have direct communication with Barnaby Joyce. We know that he is a big champion of the Biloela family. He is a big champion of Julian Assange. He does get human rights. This is a human rights issue. this is something we ought to take on just as a local council. Yes, we don't have a big sway, but we do have good relations with the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, and we should be asking him, and if council doesn't, I shall ask him myself anyway. I have great faith that he will listen, but I think it would look much more impressive if the Upper Hunter Shire Council does this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clout.
I'd just like to say that while it might not be our remit, it's not going to cost a fortune for somebody to formulate an email and send it from us all. I just don't think that's going to be a huge amount of council resources used. And it is definitely a worthy cause. And Barnaby Joyce might even get behind it because it might get him a few votes coming up. You never know. Just saying.
Okay, I think we'll put the, just turn your mic off, Clout, thank you. I think we'll just put the motion up. Those in favour, show of hands. Against? Was that 5-4? The motion's been carried, correct? Okay. Over to page 261. No, I missed one. 260, NM 01.3, notice of motion, adoption of the town and village tree preservation policy. Got a mover?
Yes,
Move Councillor Abbott. I just need a seconder. Second, Councillor Clout. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you. Thank you. So this policy came to council at the end of 2019. I understand that council it was lost, but we know that there's a lot of interest in the tree policy. It was something that was talked about a lot during our Meet the Candidate meetings and our recent campaigning. We know that we need trees to combat the urban island heat effect and pollution and for habitat for all animals. I am mindful, though, that council is working on this, and I don't want to preempt what council is doing, but I really feel the community needs to see that we're doing this, because when we did lose it, I knew that the DCP, the Development Control Plan, was going to be able to incorporate a lot of what we were trying to seek. But it's taken quite a while, and I understand that there's a lot of work to this, because it's not just protection, it's management as well, because we can't keep all the trees, and that some of them have to come down. But we don't really have an absolute an approach to planting trees all the time and maintaining them, and obviously taking them down when they need to be taken down. But this really stresses the community. The community is very stressed. I get endless phone calls when trees are being taken down, and we did come to an arrangement where when trees do have to come down, we would let the community know. So that needs to continue as well. I think we've been a little bit slack with that, but it is so important that we have a tree policy, and it won't be right to start with, but we can build on that, and we can show the whole Shire that we take trees really seriously, and that we understand that they're incredible benefits, that they help reduce emissions, they're an efficient filter for pollution, they're very good for our mental health and our physical health. They actually add to real estate value. If you have a shady street, that's going to be, you'll get more if you want to be mercenary about it. But the most important thing is we need trees, and we need to show the community that we believe in trees like they do. So thank you. And I'm looking forward to, I don't know whether I have preempted by bringing this now. I understand that Ms. Davies is coming up with a plan, but what we did have in 2019 could definitely be passed now and then added to, because it was a good policy, and we had a significant tree register too, because we have some very beautiful trees in the Shire that need to be noted, so that they're looked after, and that there's a bigger bar before we take them down. So yes, that's all I have to say right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clout. You wish to just the second? Okay. Any more questions, comment? Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, look, thank you, Mr. Mayor. many of the things that Councillor Abbott said, I concur with. However, I do not agree that on a person owns a block of land that he has to be directed, or she has to be directed or told what they have to do on there. It's a basic freedom principle. Having seen some of this particular policy where every tree is logged and you have to gain permission, it just depends on the interpretation of that particular person. Having some of my family in Sydney where this has taken place, it's not very easy at all to see your own infrastructure and vehicle with a limb coming down, which is a large limb, because the tree wasn't taken out or the thing wasn't cut down. How many blocks of land and housing blocks do you see where trees are taken down and not replanted? They're replanted with ones that are suitable to that particular environment, because I believe that basically every one of us loves trees. And I just think that once we start to control people and tell them what they've got to do on their own land, it's the wrong policy. The non-urban land, having been on the LLS for a number of years and seen that policy at last modified by this present government, where it was more, you could not remove a tree when it was causing a lot of problems with the agricultural side of things and the farming side, and seeing that particular policy as it was introduced by previous governments. We're controlling things, and yet when you go around and have a look at properties, you see a lot of trees being planted. Why? It's not compulsory, but it's because people love trees, but they want to put them in a place that's going to cause the maximum benefit to their farm. And I believe that's the same policy that needs to be here in the local township and their local block of land. They should be the ones that decide what sort of trees that go on there, not somebody coming along and telling them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor McPhee, you're speaking for or against?
Can I think this
Comment.
is right, a foreshadow? Is this correct? Can I put this in now?
Yeah, you can do whatever you feel.
That we actually wait until March and to see the new tree policy and not make decisions yet. Is that what a foreshadow is?
Do we vote on this one first, though? Isn't it? It's been
Yeah, but if
So
she
we vote
wishes
on
to
yours,
come
but I have
back,
to put it in first.
like the problem is, you're
It's
not
just
really
that
coming
I
back to
agree.
the
I
motion.
agree that we should have a tree policy,
You
but I
don't really need to foreshadow.
Well, it kind of is because
Mr Mayor,
I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
if this motion is put as it is presently as drafted by Councillor Abbott and is won, then the 2019 tree policy will be adopted by council without further exhibition to the community. It'll just simply be adopted. If councillors want to wait and see what will happen, either an amendment or a foreshadowed motion would need to be put forward to that effect, something to the wording that council not adopt the policy immediately and reconsider this in March with the staff amendments.
That would be my foreshadow. It's just I think we need a tree policy, but I don't see why we would adopt something now that we're going to be reviewing in 2 months' time, especially because many of us haven't seen the current tree policy.
Okay, so
And can I just add to that, after community consultation, would that be in line with adding to that, to foreshadow?
that's up to Councillor McPhee. Yep. But we can talk about that if this motion's lost. Okay, so you've got a foreshadow, Councillor Flaherty.
Sorry, I just want to ask a question to be clear. So by the time if we look at what's happening in March, and if it does happen in March, and then we go out to community consultation, that could be quite a long period. Is there a way that we could adopt a tree policy tonight and then look at what those recommendations are, have a longer community consultation and refine the policy, but at least have a policy in the meantime?
I think at the moment we'll go with the foreshadowed and we'll get the wording if you're on your foreshadowed motion, if the motion is lost. Okay? So clear? We're going to put the motion up to Councillor Abbott. You can close.
I'd like to close. Thank you. So just with respect to remarks already made and further to what Councillor Flaherty mentions is we don't have a policy and we're still waiting and this will be a few more months and the community is very let down by us because we didn't vote for this. We are guided by regulations already. This is a tree policy for urban areas and council controlled lands. It's not a tree policy for the non-urban lands. So you can do what you like, you can, which is a pity, but you can continue raising your blocks of land so that there's nothing on them. But this is for council controlled lands and urban areas. This is the non-rural areas of the Upper Hunter Shire. It's really important. We have taken a long time to still get nowhere. And if we just put this back on the back burner, that's all we're doing. We can move this policy. It was a good policy. I put the link here, so it's perfectly possible to go and read what this policy was, to read the submissions. But we can do this now and then still continue to be guided, because it's obviously a document that will be a work in progress. To lose this motion again is just so depressing, to think we don't take trees seriously. This Shire doesn't take trees seriously, and we ought to, because we know that they're a really big factor in reducing our emissions, and we have to reduce our emissions. It's one of the most important things we can do. As a council, we need to be really looking at that. So I urge my fellow councillors to vote for this, and then we will be guided. This is an infrastructure as well as an environment. It's also an infrastructure item. So it will be coming back to the infrastructure committee at some stage, but we can get it on the table. We need to get that on the table. That was one of the big disappointments with the Greens when back into, I think it was 2010, when they didn't vote for the Kevin Rudd's climate change policy then. Let's get this on the table, then we're seated there and we can start discussing how to make it better. It was pretty good anyway, but we can improve this, and Miss Davies' thoughts as well will make what we had even better and show the community that we do take trees seriously and we know that they play a key role in our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. So remember, we've got a foreshadowed motion. I'm putting the motion up now, so show of hands for the motion. 3 for the motion. The others are against, no doubt. So the motion has been lost. Councillor McPhee, you've got a foreshadowed motion. Can you just turn your mic on, please?
What the GM said. Well, basically, I think we need a tree policy. I'm not denying that at all. I'm just saying that if we already have one in progress, which will actually incorporate community feedback, then I think that's a good way to go. So my foreshadow, I think that's what it's called now, is that we... Just quickly, I just had a second for the foreshadow.
I seconded that.
Sorry, Councillor.
Well, that's all basically. I mean, I think we work with, and we could review what we have in the 29 policy. I'm sure that's what we're already doing. But if it's with community feedback, I think that would also be more in spirit of where we want to go.
And the seconder, Councillor Burns.
I'm against, but anyway.
The tree policy I voted against in 2019, and I brought it back to staff. The reason I voted against it was it wasn't just about Upper Hunter Shire Council. We couldn't get our own trees right. How can we tell anyone else? So we cut down the 3 out the front here. Since then, there's been a problem in Aberdeen. We can't go around telling anyone else what they're going to do while we can't get our own right. So I wanted to remove one little line and then we would have been off to the races and had no problem, but that didn't happen. I'll wait for the next policy, but I still don't think we can tell anyone else what to do. We've got to get our own house in order.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Abbott.
Yes, so yet again, I'm really disappointed with this council. Doesn't take trees seriously. It's so important. Here we are, almost February 2022. This was lost in 2019. We're still months away from when it's going to be brought to us. Then it will go back out onto community exhibition. The community told us they wanted it. They were happy. We didn't get that many submissions, but what we did get, they were all in favour. And so we're just delaying the tactic. It's a tactic, just a delayed tactic. We'll take down more trees. We took those Sherwood oaks out, those 3 out here, but then at the same time, we need to take trees out as well, because they cause problems if you don't take them out. We need a tree protection and a tree management policy.
Point of order. Under 3.10, this is humiliating comments and intimidating conduct. We've already decided on this. Could you please refrain?
Mr Mayor?
Look, I think we've got the point, councillor Abbott. We certainly, I think the foreshadowed motion has gone through. We're going to put it up to vote.
Mr Mayor, may I just say that I am able to stand up and express my dissent to this motion, like other councillors expressed their dissent to my motion. This is discussion, this is debate. I'm just pointing out the views that a dissenter has when a council doesn't, with respect to the tree policy and the amendment, the foreshadowed amendment. I do not believe it's a point of order. I am disappointed.
Okay, well, that's fine, but the original motion was lost. The foreshadowed motion was put up in second. We've heard what the foreshadowed motion is. All in favour of the foreshadowed motion?
Actually, Mr Mayor, we have not. We have not heard the words of the foreshadowed motion.
Well, I think we did, didn't we?
I believe staff have put something on the board. Sorry, I'll read it out for those who can't see it. At the moment, it is reading that council not adopt the policy immediately, but review after community consultation.
Can I just ask what community consultation?
Yeah.
What, are we going to wait till the policy comes back and then put it out to the community?
No, I believe, councillor, that the intent from what councillor McPhee said earlier was that she was looking for the staff version to come back in March and then go on community consultation. Am I
Perhaps
correct?
we could include that consultation after the March 2022 policy, which has been written that it's coming out.
Can you capture that, Robin?
You happy with that now?
No, above that it says council staff are preparing a further draft to be put to council in March 2022.
That's correct.
So that we could state that it's the March 2022 draft.
Put review in March 2022 before placing on community consultation.
Okay, I think we're all fairly clear what the foreshadowed motion was. And the foreshadowed motion was show of hands again, in favour?
Does this need to be seconded now it's finally written up there?
I think we
Mr
may
Mayor,
have.
I will second it. And on a point of order, I think if we take the emotion out of this, and there are some claims that perhaps could be debatable, but that's not what we're about. And I just think that we should, I move that the motion be put, the amendment foreshadowed a motion be put, so that we can just move on. We just round and round in circles, and there is a lot of emotion involved, and I suggest.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. I
Thank
think
you.
we've got the point. Foreshadowed motion, show of hands, please, again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and against Councillor Clout and Councillor Abbott. Thank you. So the foreshadowed motion has been passed. Over to page 261, QWN 01.1, the councillor questions there. There's Councillor Abbott's, and there's another piece of paper somewhere here from Councillor Watts. As we said, no clarification needed from councillors on those. If not, just a recommendation that council note the questions received. Got a mover. Councillor Campbell, seconder. Councillor Burns. No more questions, comment, discussion. All in favour? Against? Carried. I believe that brings our meeting to a close. Thank you, councillors, in the manner in which we conducted ourselves, and declare the meeting closed at 6:25. I've got to acknowledge the two mayors up the back.
Oh.
No, don't worry about it. You're going out for tea? Yeah.